evening, everyone. This is like to welcome you to the December 18th Executive Committee meeting. My name is CB11 Santiago. I'm the chair of this committee. This meeting is officially called to order at 6:31 p.m. Tonight we're joined by Angel Biscayne, our staff liaison. I wanted to acknowledge it is International Holocaust Survivors Night, the 5th night of Hanukkah, especially with all the anti-Semitism. I just wanted to take note of that. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. 1, no one may speak until granted the floor. 2, CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. To raise your hand through Zoom, click the participant's icon. You will find the raise hand motion there. If you have any technical difficulty, click the chat icon. Relay your difficulty to the staff. If you're here in the room, obviously raise your hand to be recognized. 3, members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person to speak. 4, the chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record when recognized. Chat should only be used to alert staff to any technical difficulties they're having or state in writing information like an email address or phone number that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. 5, when a member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you may unmute yourself or you may speak at that time. 6, please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. 7, members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. With that, we will now take attendance by roll call.
Jose Altamirano, Dem Brija, Rosa Diaz, present. Jessica Elliott,
present without disability.
Paige Mason, Jessica Morris, Nilso Rama, present. Asher Rodriguez, Xavier Santiago, present. Isaac Scott, Derek Stampone, present. Anne-Marie Vasquez, Jason Villanueva, Michelle Wilcher Clement.
Present but en route.
Thank you. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there's no objection, we will adopt the agenda with one change. Old business should be toward the end of the agenda. Yeah, sit down. You're recognized.
For the sake of expediting this, can we motion to try to keep this to an hour?
Second. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I think we need to do a one by one vote.
Roll call. Roll call. Yeah.
I'd be close.
The agenda for tonight's meeting is officially adopted and will be kept under an hour. Okay. The minutes from the last meeting were distributed to committee members ahead of time by the board office. If there are no objections, we will adopt the minutes from that meeting. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes, you can raise your hand to be recognized. Seeing no hands raised, the agenda for tonight's meeting is officially adopted. All right, the minutes for tonight's meeting will be taken by myself. Okay. We will now move into our agenda. First up is announcements. Are there any announcements?
What's on the table?
Empanadas.
Announcement.
Okay. I will have one announcement. The last Harlem Night Market is this Saturday from 3 to 7 p.m. at La Maqueta, all the way down to the garden, Urban Garden Center. Please come out and enjoy, support local. So that's what I want to announce. Okay, presentations and discussions. First, the discussion on the current method of operation for JTS Way, LLC, doing business Skybox Sports Bar located at 2241 First Avenue, New York, 129. All right, this was brought to my attention by Adam. Would you like to speak on this? Do we have you?
Well, I was going to say before I do, I think they were invited to attend, someone from the establishment. So if they're here, I think we should let them speak first. Unless they don't know why they're here, in which case I can briefly tell them, let them speak, then speak again.
I do not see anyone in the attendees. We have Asher Rodriguez, who is in the attendees, and Brenda Lex from Third Block Association. From the panelists, we have myself, Angel, Jess, Michelle. So they're not present.
Where did Angel go? Because I want to know if they responded, if they were going to be here, and then we can do the other one first, because we know they're not coming. Did Skybox, the first one we reached out to, do you know if they responded that they would be?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well then, look, I'll tell you guys, and then we'll see what happens.
We'll start with Scott.
Yeah, without naming anyone, it was raised the attention that there was an outdoor, like one of those displays like this, advertising, I believe, pole dancing lessons. Which, I don't know what that really is, but whatever. And then, once you hear something like that, especially after, what just recently happened with another establishment in the neighborhood, you look into it, because it's the right thing to do and because we should be consistent. And so on social media, it's found that there is in fact pole dancing, but it does not appear to be a lesson, and I'm happy to share the video with anyone. I think Xavier, you have them as well, right? And before I begin, I just checked to make sure, and somebody could double check. There is a box on I think it's the 30-day notices, whatever, where there's an option to check off exotic dancing. There's been a lot of like what's stripping and what's this, but I think that maybe exotic dancing would be the best term to use in this case is moving forward, because that seems to be how the SLA references it as well. So I won't get into too much, but
Point of clarification.
yeah.
Is this an eating and drinking establishment?
They had come for a liquor license, much like I'll say the Pain Bodega Paradise. They, I feel, have misrepresented what they said that their method of operation was going to be, at least as it pertains to this. I'm not saying that there aren't aspects of the business that they did present. I will say too, don't hold me to it because I review. I'm not even on that committee anymore, but there are other issues with their method of operation. When they fill these stipulation forms out, we ask them, how many promoted events will you be having a year? How many DJ'd events? Will you be closing your doors at 10 p.m. so that, amplified sound? And, I can tell you that you can hear sometimes from pretty far away. Not even in front of the establishment. And they are doing, I think, a lot more promoted events than they said they would. And I don't think that there's an issue if you're just honest, like if you want to have an open mic night or whatever, but it's just kind of like, well, why are you saying you're doing a certain number? And then I think you're doing more in 1 month than you said you were going to do in a year. And if your business determined that you needed to, pivot, I think that's completely understandable. And you could come back and, I don't think this board's unreasonable. Remember Prime 116 had hookah? And then we went through a whole thing, and then we met with them here, and their business didn't end up working out, but we were very open to having a discussion when things were out in the open, even though I don't think they volunteered to come here.
Clarification, pole dancing lesson.
Here,
No, I
I'd
don't
like
need
to
to
see
see,
the video.
just to clarify, pole dancing lessons,
Okay.
correct? Is that?
That's as far as I think I didn't screenshot that whole part, but yes, that's what was advertised on the sign outside. And I believe on social media, this post that I'm going to show you, and I could find the actual post on Instagram, it also starts off as advertising pole dancing lessons. I think it even offers the definition of it. But then it transitions over to a video. And so here.
Somebody's getting creative.
Maybe I'll just go to the Instagram. Well, while I'm pulling up the video,
Yes.
does anyone else have something to say?
Yes.
Sure. So, and a couple things. Thank you for bringing this to the table. And recently, in my day job, I spent a number of weeks researching adult establishments, what that means as far as zoning is concerned, and what it doesn't mean, where it is allowed and where it isn't allowed, and what you can do if it is not allowed. So just, this is from the zoning resolution 12-10. So if getting this eating and drinking establishment with exotic dancing's liquor license removed is not sufficient to get them to change their practices, which may be in violation of their certificate of occupancy in harboring a non-permitted use, then further action through the Department of Buildings, which can escalate to the revocation, the commissioner from the Department of Buildings would have to bring the issue to the Board of Standards and Appeal to revoke the certificate of occupancy. Just a couple of definitions from 12-10 in the zoning resolution, adult establishment. So I'm going to read a couple of sections, and I think it makes it really clear. And I, in colloquial terms, well, I'll say that until after. This is the fun part. An adult establishment is a commercial establishment which is or includes an adult bookstore, adult eating and drinking establishment, yada, 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 yada. 1A describes what an adult bookstore is and isn't. 1B describes an adult eating and drinking establishment is an eating and drinking establishment which regularly features in any portion of such establishment any one or more of the following: live performance, which are characterized by an emphasis placed on, quote, specific anatomical areas, unquote, or, quote, specific sexual activities, unquote, or films and motion pictures, yada, yada, employees who, as part of their employment, regularly expose patrons to, quote, specific anatomical areas, unquote. Then in section 2, further defined terms, letter C, for the purposes of paragraph 1, A, B, C, and D, which we care about, paragraph 1B, specific anatomical areas are defined as less than completely or opaquely concealed, bullet listed. CC is female breast below a point immediately top of the areola. So if it's meeting that criteria, it is then an adult establishment. An adult establishment per 4201 of special provisions for adult establishments, which is the most permissive zoning classification, identifies the places where adult establishments can happen. It states that in all other manufacturing districts, no, quote, adult establishment established shall be established less than 500 feet from a house of worship, a school, a residence district, any C2, C1, C2, C3, C4, C5-1, C6-1, C6-2, or C6-3 district, or a manufacturing district other than M1-6, in which new residences for joint living and working purpose artists are allowed. So if it is an adult establishment, it's definitely not allowed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well-
Would you be so kind?
Okay.
To copy and paste that in an email?
Now for, well, do we want to see, I screenshotted an image and it shows that there's a video too, but I don't know if you need the video really. And there's the money on the floor, I think is the part that tells me it's not a lesson.
So here, briefly look, okay.
Are there movies flying? Is my question.
No.
You mean like,
Henry.
well, when you mean like uncovered?
Yes.
No.
No, but there's dollar bills on the floor, all over the floor. Nelson, you had a question, please.
What I want to know is if this type of establishment is allowed in a residential building. For their families.
I think you just read that, and there have to be, no.
No.
If there's not exposure happening, then yes.
Well,
If there's
look,
exposure happening, then no.
maybe, I don't think you can post exposure on Instagram. So just because you don't see it, I guess, do we have reasonable, to believe it is possible? And then if we don't even want to go that far, just simply in what they submitted to this committee and possibly to the SLA, this would qualify as exotic dancing, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they said they weren't going to have exotic dancing, right? So that's the other point. So, yeah, I mean, if you guys want to see it again, or you want to see a video, they can share it, but I think you saw something.
I think it would be reasonable from this committee, because there is a alleged misrepresentation, but from what we can see, what their application was, that we could send a letter to investigate from SLA.
Well, right. And, if I was an establishment in this neighborhood that recently had this process carried out with me, I would expect and I think we should expect from ourselves that we would follow this procedure with any business in our neighborhood, at the very least, to get more information and figure out, what exactly what's going on. That's really it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this establishment. I've never been to a strip club, don't intend on going to. I know some people like them. But I just want to say, I know people who like do pole dance classes because it's like actually good exercise. And they are not exotic dancers.
Right.
So I don't want to foreclose like a business's opportunity to do that if it is something that isn't like misleading or improper or inappropriate. Just because we like assume that has an association to something that is like worse than it might actually be. And I like that picture I think is a little alarming, like the dollars on the floor.
That's the part.
But like that, it does not look like what I imagine like a strip club to look like. Like the lights are on. It's like the lighting looked not too different from the lighting in this room. And maybe the not checking off the exotic dancing thing on your form was just like, that's not.
Well, what about, sorry.
That's not what the primary activity that the business engages in. Maybe it's just like, yeah, we got this pole because people like to use the pole.
Rosa.
So when I learned about this situation, me and my son went in, and we didn't see anything, and I didn't go into that specific room, but we went in and just found ourselves with a lot of people having a good time with comedy. So I'm not sure if it's like classes or something else is going on in there, but I would like to see it again. I mean, I don't know, it could have been in the
Well, right,
could have been on the bank.
they've advertised, I believe, that they do it on weekends. And I appreciate you going, but the picture that you took, I'm pretty sure was obstructed by a wall where the pole was right behind it. And I don't think pole dancing was happening last night. I agree, they do other events. And I don't think it's also not checking a box. You don't come to a board and leave that part of your business out. And let's say when you came, you weren't doing that, and then you started doing that. It's not like you said you were going to sell these cocktails and then you sold those cocktails, but you're really adding in something that I think people should be aware of. I wonder too, were they IDing people at the door?
Oh, thank you for bringing me there to that point. So I also went with my son and one of the members to Bodega Paradise, and they were not very kind. They actually ID'd us, and they didn't let my son, who's 18, go in.
Mm-hmm.
They said that you have to be 21 and over. I'm like, but this is a juice bar. Why can't we just go in? No, you can't go in if you're under 21. So yesterday, we saw a sign said that everyone is gonna be ID or something, but it was only to pay like credit card, I guess. But we went in. I had a beer. They asked him, "Do you want,
So no one was ID.
No one was being ID, and he's 18. And we told the guy, "Oh yeah, he's 18." But they didn't really.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, I have nothing else to say.
Okay. Do we desire to take a position?
Yeah.
No, they didn't. No.
Question.
Yes, there's no.
Are there bodies, not physical bodies, but are there entities that are appropriate for investigating these types of? Right, I know, Rosa, I think you went out, beyond your duty as a board member to take it into investigator mode. But is there a unit within SLA that would investigate? Is there a unit within DOB, these sort of jurisdictional authorities that are responsible for compliance?
Well, I know DOB, I believe, went to Bodega Paradise. It seemed like the most effective agency was actually not one. It was Gothamist that really went and, yeah, well, that was being funny. I said it was not one, right? So, no, I heard they stationed the cop car outside, which I really didn't understand the point of that, but, DOB went there to look, apparently then didn't look at what they were asked to look at. So it's a good question. I do feel like in the case of Bodega Paradise, as we know, our city council person was very involved. And I feel like if there was an arm of the SLA or whatever to have motioned that way, which I don't think happened, I think they would have known about that, but it's still worth looking into. And as to taking a position tonight, I don't know how much notice they were really given. I know that if we take a position tonight, they're not gonna not be operating because we took a position tonight by the next time we meet. So I would say, because of that, we, let them know again, by tomorrow. And then if they don't show up again, then we can take a position. I'm not saying what that position is, but then I think we have the ability to take a position.
In January.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I want to say that, having conversations with people in the streets, and I do go to some of the restaurants. I've been told that some of these restaurants are doing really bad, right? The revenue is not that good. So I think that this is something that they're starting to do now because it brings money. It's not just one, or they got and Skybox, like you have two brothers, two sisters, whatever, 4 sisters, 4 brothers. So it seems like, they're looking into other ways, for other revenues. And we need to look into that too, because it's just a way, I think it's to survive that they're gonna do this. I'm not saying it's a good thing. But so we need to help them then. How can we help our businesses then? If they're looking into other methods of business, that's not good for us.
all right, thank you for that. So, yes,
Devin brought up about how, if places are having these things going on, and need to change what they're doing, that they should come to us. How do you think we can do a better job around that, whether it's like during the initial process when they're coming to us and the licenses committee, or in further follow-up, just like letting them know that we want to be active in what they're up to, so we're not finding out ourselves and then having to draw inference, like conclusions, like what's really going on here. I'm curious like what we can do around that.
we can direct them to a lot of different resources, whether it's small business services, there are other, you have UMass, which gives microloans. In fact, 2 businesses that are opening up storefronts receiving such loans. I think that there are ways. I think the challenge here is that we got burnt during the pandemic with Lighthouse Fish Market. I see it, and we kind of learned our lesson that we really need to inspect the places, make sure they're doing what they're doing, and when they've done, we call them to the carpet. I think that's we learned a pretty heavy lesson, and that was very early on where we had to go there with the officers, and we saw the metal blocks and the poles, and it was in a room that you had to wrap around, and it was lounge something or other. But, yeah, so anyway, but yes, there are ways we can pursue that. Yes.
I think maybe there was also another part to your comment, which is like when they come, right, initially, and correct me if I'm wrong, there could be a thing where it's like, look, and we don't have to say it's because you're struggling. We just say, should you decide at any point that you want to change your method of operation or add something in that isn't here, we would just appreciate that you come to the board to share that before you do it. And then that way, when these things do happen, even more so, we're like, well, we have it documented. We could even have a new checkbox on the stipulation form that just says, it might be there though, that, look, here's the other thing. SLA requires you to notify them of a method of operation change. So technically, a much higher power than us who gives the license has already said that. And I'm pretty sure they didn't notify the SLA when they changed these things. And if they told us there's no exotic dancing, I'm pretty sure they told the SLA there's no exotic dancing, right? So I agree with you. We could do it anyway, but it is already kind of enforced, by the body that gives them a license.
Thank you.
And then you want to just touch the other one quickly? They're not going to be here.
So we are going to table this.
Okay.
We don't need a motion. We're going to bring it up next month. And yes, let's touch on the one. This is a discussion on the current method of operation. 2 Sisters and 4 Brothers Restaurant and Lounge located at 355 East 116th Street. They were invited, and they said they could not make it last minute request.
Yeah, it was last minute.
Yeah, so-
So, again, I heard, and I don't take, like, what do you call it? Just hearsay but it makes you look into it, right? And there were comments that this was another establishment that might have been doing things. Interestingly enough, they had come for their renewal not that long ago, and their only issue was some 311 calls, but nothing super alarming. And, there was no mention of what was being said might be happening there. And again, they're having fashion shows and all this stuff. I mean, it's also the issue sometimes too is the amount of people that should be within a certain space. A lot of times when you hear these horror stories at clubs and things where a lot of people get hurt, it's because they're cramming a bunch of people into space and the place isn't built out to have exits and stuff like that. And everybody goes, that'll never happen here, that'll never happen here, and then it happens, right? It's kind of like the street light on 120th that I think we're finally getting in. They only put the one on 119th in after somebody got killed. I mean, that shouldn't be the metric by which we do things, that we have to have a really bad thing happen first. Just to go quickly, I looked in. The reason that it was last minute was because there really wasn't anything, but then somebody must have tagged this from another place. And I don't know what the rules are about like smoking. I know you can't smoke cigarettes inside an establishment. I think that would probably extend to smoking cannabis. There's clearly open substance use in the establishment. There are women that are dressed possibly even less so than the ones in the pole dancing, but not naked.
What capacity is it?
And they were not pole dancing. They were just amongst a crowd, a very big crowd, dancing in the crowd. I think it was a birthday party. But again, not what was said. Very similar to what we're hearing from these other places. I'll be honest with you. I think, and this is my opinion, we don't have to do it here, but I'm happy to share whatever wants to see it. But I would argue that what I've seen on video of this one might be more damning than what was at Bodega Paradise, just off of like what I saw in my own eyes, because I didn't see certain things that, but I was very careful when I would say that I just saw like the twerking and stuff. This seemed a little bit more than that. So again, I just think it's worth waiting. They were asked even with less notification because we didn't know. But I think the same way we should bring them in, have a discussion, and go from there in January as well. And I think that if nobody else has any comments, I don't know. I think we might be able to let it rest at that.
I have a question.
You have a question?
For them. You say the ladies have a dress.
I didn't send you here. I'll show you.
No, but I'm not to Skybox the other one.
Yeah, Two Brothers, 4 Sisters. Here, yeah. Yeah. So it's 30.
Okay, so we're content to revisit this next month, right?
Wow.
Okay, so we're good to table this,
Yep.
all right? Okay, next, moving on, we will revisit this under your leadership.
Thank you.
Next month. Have fun. Next, we have our attendance. It's, well, I don't think we need to pull that up. We can just, unless you have it ready, Angel. I'll start reading in real quick. We had done an assessment, Rosa and Angel both cross-checked everything. Currently, there are 4 members who have met the threshold to initiate the removal process, and 3 of them are new. The first one in alphabetical order via last name is going to be Robin McGinty, who has missed 4 full board meetings from July to December, and those were July, October, November, and December. The second one would be, Carolyn Percy, who was absent for 5 of the full board meetings held in June, July, September, October, and November. Jason Wu was absent for 4 of the 5 full board meetings from June, July, September, and October. The committee attendance for the 6-month period in July, December 2025. These members were appointed to the committees effective September 2025. Carolyn Percy was absent for 4 public safety meetings and absent for 4 ECODEB meetings. Marina Phillips was absent for 4 EOSP meetings and 4 license and permit. Per our process, it's fairly straightforward. They're not being removed tonight. This is just merely initiating the process, and then they receive letters, and we do the courtesy outreach to talk to them. Some of the new board members may not be aware; they should be aware. So that's what's before us now. So, are there any questions? We'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion. What is it, to begin the due process removal procedures for all 4 of the, you want me to name them?
I can name it.
Okay.
All right, so Dem Brehan makes a motion to initiate the removal process for our bylaws for the following members. We have second, Robin McGinty, Carolyn Percy, Marina Phillips, and Jason Wood. Seconded by Rosa Diaz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm for it, Xavier.
So yeah, that's a yes, Asher?
Yeah, that's a yes.
Thank you for confirming. Just a moment, let me just get this in. Okay, next up, we have new business. Is there any new business? All right, seeing no new business? Yes.
Can we circle back to old business?
Yeah, old business was in the print up was wrong, so we adjusted that, so that's next. And then next up is old business. And Jessica Morris.
Thank you very much. And so,
It is just for your edification, 702.
thank you. There it is. So just a couple notes to wrap up on the discussion about the election that happened at the board the other night. What I didn't get to offer is the elections committee also met earlier this week. There was a call at that table to put forward a process manual for the elections committee beyond what's written in the bylaws, because it was acknowledged that there was a lot of really valuable material that was produced and processes that were undertaken. And I just want to state that because it was communicated to the full board that this already exists. But there were calls at the table, again, committee members voicing interest in having more robust directions on how to move through the process successfully. So, and then the committee also, we didn't take any votes or any actions, but these were discussions, so it's for informational purposes only. And also there were a few recommendations to incoming leadership that were the sort of post-mortem of what the takeaways are, and there was some consensus there. So we intend to put that communication forward about a couple of additional points that may either be considered by new board leadership, or if the board oversight committee continues to advance, that I believe is one of their sort of points of purview. Both and then separate from that would be information related to the further review of and any potential consideration or adjudication of any grievances that were brought up during the elections period, with the intent to handle all of those things discreetly and really kind of clear any doubts that may exist. I think new members may be a little bit confused about what exactly happened, and that is concerning. So the fourth point, I didn't have the wherewithal to bring it to a vote amongst the elections committee. We did have quorum, but not all members were present. We had earlier in one of our meetings on the record discussed with no objection to make public the candidate questionnaires as a way of people getting to know some board members in addition to the bios that are posted on the website under members. It seemed not very contentious, so if there's no objection from those members themselves to make that information public, I think would be a nice gesture. Whether it includes also other candidates who were not elected, I think the elections committee intended for that to not happen, that only those who will be taking office would have their questionnaire published publicly. So that's all. If not, then they just stay in the records and serve their purpose. But I think it's a nice representation of where people are coming from, why they're here, and it provides, sort of a really great snapshot of intentions. So thank you.
Also, if we could limit the discussion, please.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of this is being said, it's gonna, be on new leadership, right, which, I mean, makes sense. If it's gonna get addressed, it ain't getting addressed these next couple weeks. With that being said, there's been a lot of assumptions that this will go to board oversight. I don't know who said that, because I didn't say it. And I'm not saying that it's gonna be what I said, but, and there's a reason why I don't think it can go there, and if we want it to go somewhere, we can, I will do what the body wants. If they want to make and the reason I say this, unless people don't agree with me on this, is the way it was originally spoken about, and I think one of the things that'll happen is that the secretary, treasurer, and vice chair will be on the board oversight committee. They were participants in this election. Therefore, I don't feel that if there is going to be a review or anything, not that anybody did anything wrong, because, or anything, it just, I don't think that then it would be appropriate for it to be reviewed that way. That's one. Two, again, if people want an elections handbook, okay. But what I will say, and this is not from me, becoming chair or whatever, I've been on this board now 12 years. I think I've maybe been I don't want to, let's say 5 elections. I commend everything you've done, and in the sense of trying to add structure and all of that. And I'm actually an advocate of really putting down procedures and stuff so that there isn't confusion, or because if terms are being used and then people make assumptions about what those terms mean or whatever. With that said, the flip side is that sometimes things get overcomplicated and they create issues. We ran elections for a long time with this grievance and this and that, and it was never really an issue. So you could look at it one of 2 ways, and it'll be up to the board. I don't care which way you guys decide to go, whatever way the body majority agrees, we can do that. But there is the idea that when it was simpler, I don't think there were these issues. You were there, right, a long time. You ran in them yourself. Or then if we are going to want to make it a more robust thing, then I do agree that we have to have it very clearly written down, so it can be, if somebody uses, let's use the term electioneering. From my understanding of the definition, electioneering is not necessarily a bad thing or a thing that's not allowed to be done. There are bad examples of electioneering, but that word just started to get thrown around like a no-no word. And so I think we just have to define things if we're going to get more complex. And then my last thing is, there was this call to debrief, or whatever you want to call it, this current election. And again, whatever the majority decides to do, personally, I feel uncomfortable as myself as a candidate and that ran in this. But I will say this much. Whoever made that request, and I mean this seriously, or whoever has these requests, to say exactly what they would like to see in that process. And I say this because of this reason. the meetings where decisions should have been being made on the record are on YouTube. You can go and watch those meetings, and that's what should have been happening. If there, I know a lot of the committee said that they were not involved in a lot of these things. If that is the case, then there wouldn't necessarily be things to look at there. And I don't know. I'm just saying from what I've heard. So if people want this debriefing to happen, and I'm kind of being tasked with it, that's okay. But then I guess I'm saying, if you're going to make the request, I'd like to hear what would that entail exactly, because I think that, a lot of this is probably their list of grievances was provided. I thought that was anonymous. I guess if you don't want it to be anonymous, you're allowed to publicly air maybe your own grievance, right? But that, because somebody does that, doesn't mean that everybody else's grievances have to now be made about who did it, right? We know what the grievances were. Now, people want to look into why one grievance, if somebody thinks one grievance was looked at differently than another grievance, again, that could be considered. I just don't know in which way would we be able to look into that. If people really want to, and they have a successful way of doing it, then we can do that. But I'm being told, a month or 3 months, and I'm like, well, I don't, you can't just mandate something, first of all, and offer absolutely no suggestion on how it should be done. But those are my comments.
Elsa.
Okay, there's a lot going on here. And pardon me if I sound frustrated, because I actually am frustrated. When the elections committee was formed, I had a meeting with you, and I provided documentation and templates that we have used in the past. I even said that some of it may have been created by other chairs, because I don't steal people's stuff, to look at and revise, adapt, or discard, right? When I first became elections chair, I did a manual, and it even had examples of everything. And I think that Jason's looking at me a certain way because he knows how I look, right? So, no, I want to finish now. I have the floor, with all due respect. What I'm hearing is that this election was overly complicated. I'm hearing that, and I understand every chair wants to put a stamp on it, but I heard from the board members, because I think you could see when I speak, the reaction from board members. They know that when I speak from a certain place. They felt that it was overly complicated. A lot of them felt that they didn't know what was going on. A lot of them felt that materials from the candidates were disseminated late, right? Some committee members have even let me know that they didn't even know that I had supplied stuff. All that said, I have an issue with the grievances, right? If this body cannot address grievances based on the process that was put in by the elections committee, I can't tell what you considered a grievance. I don't know what you considered a member in good standing. If you are here in the board, you're in good standing. Because if you weren't in good standing, you would have been removed, right? So what all of this to say is that I'm totally confused, because to me, a debrief is written with explanations, even if they are not saying names, right? We need to find out, and this is why the board was confused. I have people come up to me at the end of the meeting, because they know that I've run elections before, saying things were mentioned that we're totally confused. How do you mention this grievance and that grievance, and we don't even know what the grievance is? And it gave the appearance that something was done wrong in this election, and it wasn't. You did what you could do with your committee in the best way you felt you know how. And you wanted to be democratic and progressive, and you wanted to even extend when people, because I remember that from your meetings. But people in this board were terribly confused with what went on Tuesday. They wanted clarification. They felt that maybe we should have gone into an executive session to discuss if there was something done wrong. And there was nothing done wrong. And comments that were said gave the impression that something was done wrong. Mm-hmm. If someone did something, then a general statement should have been made. A candidate said this at a meeting and gave the impression of this, And this was what the example quid pro quo. I can't tell you how many calls I've gotten. Who did quid pro quo for what? And I'm like, that I did not run this elections committee. Now the body, the executive team, because honestly, the elections committee should be dissolved as of this meeting because the elections are done. But there's nothing to debrief. And now with what was discussed, people are expecting a report about how we're resolving everything that wasn't done. Manuals, there's materials there ad nauseum. You wanna put them together? We even had a sample ballot. The point I'm trying to make is that when a committee tries to put in too much process, when the committee is not clear, the committee is saying that they felt that they weren't part of the process and found about things after the fact, this is what results. So I agree that there has to be something, and if this body, the executive committee and not board oversight, I have an idea for board oversight with elections a different day, but the executive committee should be addressing this with a detailed report from the elections committee stating how they got to each decision if the board is requesting that. And if that's something, because most of the members were totally confused and they were like, well, why wasn't it said? Like, who did something wrong? Nobody did anything wrong. And there are candidates that won that felt that they had grievances and didn't file them. And I know that too, because people tell me stuff, right? So, and you have grievances and other people have grievances. But I will tell you, I ran like 5 elections for the board, special, 1, and maybe 3 others. And I never had a grievance. You know why? Because I assumed that everyone on the board was good enough to run this board. And only if something, let me finish, Chair. And only if something came up, did you give the grace to that candidate to pull himself out. But for us to sit and then do resolutions that this is a good candidate, and then for the elections committee to say they didn't have enough time. I did that. The last election I did with 3 meetings, and one of my people was running for assembly. We didn't have an issue. So this body has to think about what's existing, how it wants elections to be run, and then be careful with their comments when they talk. Because we are our own worst enemies and we're on camera. And I don't care that I'm on camera because that's the truth. We look disorganized. We look like we don't know what we're doing. When we are 50 capable people, 49, because I don't even know who's here anymore, right? And so we all come from the heart to do something good. But we gotta stop fighting amongst ourselves and justifying why this person got elected and I feel aggrieved and I think this and that. Everybody has the right to feel how they feel. But if you have a clear process and you don't deviate from the process, and the executive committee starts anticipating now, right? Because I'm saying the executive committee should look at this, then you can anticipate situations, and this won't happen in the next election. I'll come back as a public member because I've already threatened danger with that. And I'm gonna watch, right? Because he says, you ain't gonna come back, and I say, yes, I am, right? And I'm gonna
The door's always
watch,
open.
right? But, come on. What we looked at and what we saw, and then, we have to do better than this.
Point of clarification,
Yes,
Dr.
Jessica. No.
You have prepared a manual previously.
I've had my first election, I did so. And then I sent you the stuff that we discussed, because the only thing I didn't send you was the ballot. Because the ballot,
we have the ballot.
okay, so you have everything. And it seemed like some of the members on your committee stated that they didn't even know about this stuff ahead of time. And they should have known that from the first meeting. So a lot of the stuff that happened, you could have segued into something else. I'm not talking about your process. I'm talking about what happened on Tuesday. The people that saw this got an impression that something happened that was untoward. That's not fair to the incoming leadership. It's not fair for any candidate who ran. It's not fair that Angel had to get and start saying what he was saying because the Manhattan Borough president was there and he was so happy about how much work he's done with Community Board 11 that he never addressed. Oh, and by the way, for the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna make sure that any business that I have with Community Board 11 is gonna be cleaned up. Who's gonna do that? The next person?
So like, one of the things that came up on Tuesday was around like what actions of the elections committee should have come to the full board to be ratified. And it's certainly true that many actions committees don't require that. We don't ratify approval of minutes or agenda. But one thing I did want to highlight, and again, this is my first election that I participated in, but with the term limits and some of the changes that were made to the bylaws, perhaps this was the first time that candidates were deemed unable to run. And in my opinion, and I guess we went to city law and asked about the word shall, the bylaws are not the law, right? We interpret our bylaws. So I just want to put out there that the next time we do this, if the bylaws remain as they are, and we're going to include qualifications like you must be able to finish the term, and I hope we clean up that language. The people on the bylaws committee know I was very adamant that I did not think that is what the interpretation should have been, that people should have been prevented from running because they only had 18 months left on the board. I think those types of decisions, interpretations of our bylaws, must be ratified by the full board. And so I want staring at it now because it just came up, and that is a thing that we need to do going forward. And again, perhaps this was the first time this really happened, that candidates were sort of deemed ineligible, and so it's an opportunity to learn from that. But we interpret our own bylaws. It's not up to city law to tell it, unless there are, the charter is above that, but the bylaws themselves, the city charter says nothing about a member has to be able to finish out an elected term.
So, and thank you, be mindful of time, it's 7:22, we have a motion to get us out of here. So, I've heard what you said, a postmortem type of development, if the committee wants to put their postmortem, this is what our thoughts are and whatnot, for the executive committee to review the best practices going forward. I'm not opposed for everyone. We had good processes in place. But if you're gonna do the spaghetti method, just like, all right, we're gonna throw it against the wall, see what sticks, does it work? And you've got time to workshop it. That's what I'm advising you now. It's gonna be in your hands, and if I'm gonna be with you at this table on the other side, then great, I'll be there to help as well. To the legal interpretation, respectfully, very contentious, we understand. When we had our onboarding, US Constitution, federal laws, New York Constitution, state laws, city charter, local laws, then our bylaws. And city law is there as our resource, that when we have a question, the shall is used legally, and we are seeing a transition to using must, which is the nomenclature that's more common for laymen. Shall is a requirement, and the way they interpret it, the current iteration, if you, in using common reason, is that if you cannot complete, that's why they said we need to change it, that if you're up for reappointment, but that's something that we would have to amend. And again, no iteration from, and I just want to be clear, because this is something I recommended during executive, is that if we wanted to get in sync, you have to start it from when our terms are, which is April 1st, 2 years later to March 31st. And I put a recommendation early on, and it wasn't taken up, and that's okay, that's fine, this is where we are. So I think that's where that is. I do want to, yes, I had Nilsa and then say.
Can I just ask a clarification for what you just said? What do you mean you asked to have it start in April?
No, when we had early conversations,
Do you mean like elections happen earlier in the year?
No, that they would happen earlier, that they would align like one of the other boards does it. They start like in January, the process where they set the elections committee, then they have nominations in February, elections in March, and then the new appointments are supposed to come April, but they typically come in May, but per city charter. So that's where that is. So Nelson, Jason.
Yeah, I wanted to compound what's, I think that's exactly the issue, personally. just being here in 10 years, which might be a service for future leadership. I don't disagree because elections kind of is I forget the term, it's one of those like floating committees that they could just bring it up when they need it. I think we should start, we know the cycle of our election. This is for executive. We should start it 6 months in advance, have the committee formed up, get that, for lack of a better word, that onboarding orientation that some of the elections committee members, they just need to go through, respectfully. I don't think, unless you've been through an election 2 or 3 times, you're not gonna necessarily be able to adapt and adjust, which Jessica, I think you did graciously. Some of the other members, I just know they're newer members. So I think elections should start, way more in advance, and I think it would clear up a lot of that drama. And my final recommendation would be, any grievances that the board has, we have process, it's in the law. You have the executive committee, you have oversight, and now we have a, I would hope the bylaws committee stands. It's not a standing committee, but maybe that's something to think of for the future, the bylaws committee. So when we're arguing policy, procedure, or process, we have a place where it's being handled objectively. So, that way people
Let's see, that's a
challenges
good
are being
recommendation.
addressed.
Start
Yeah,
6
it's
months
just,
early.
it's all about solutions, right? Because we definitely could chomp at what should and shouldn't be doing, but my personal opinion, there wasn't enough time for the campaign. I don't know the term electioneering or spearing or deering, but I keep it simple. Like I would like, and I don't put that on the elections committee. I put that just on time, right? Process. So maybe it's something for us to think of in the future. We know every 2 years we're gonna have this big election. Maybe we should start a year in advance with the, I'm not an election guy, but I wish Nye was here. Like that whole, primaries for the candidates. I don't know. It's just a thought. Make it more sexy and fun, and people feel a part of it, and it's less drama. Like what you're dealing with is human nature. People are gonna complain. It was a competitive process. People lost. You're gonna deal with it. I lost a lot of times here, right? You guys have voted against me a few times.
February 7th,
I want to add something very quick.
You got a hand up on Zoom, Jessica's like.
There were so many people here that had just joined Community Board 11, and they did not know the process. So they needed to be educated in advance about what's happening. And so their lack of education of not knowing what was going on to start, and then all the grievances compounding on top of it, so many people are so confused, and it didn't need to be that way.
Yeah, but were they?
I think that means,
So let's, Jessica Elliott.
I just wanted to finish.
No, yeah, sorry, I didn't know. I thought you were finished.
No, I'm not finished.
All right, go.
I just think that in the future, if we could even just have something written down for this process and disseminate it to each, and then say, did you read it before coming in? That would help the process.
Okay, all right. Jessica Elliott.
And then I just want to finish up.
Thank you. For the record, I just want to say my grievance had nothing to do with the word shall. It was with how this process was directed, knowing we were walking into an election with a nuanced situation with the term limits. I believe that what should have happened is that the chair should have facilitated the bylaws committee earlier in the process, as was recommended and subsequently recommended by city law. The delay and subsequent confusion led to a process that was confusing for everyone and disheartening, and I don't think what anyone deserved. The city law questions that were sent out after being told that no one else can reach out to city law was sat on for months, and there was no opportunity afforded for any of those with grievances to speak for ourselves. So I just want you to hear it from me that the word shall doesn't define what it was that I personally felt grieved by. But I look forward to this being resolved. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And just everyone for the record, city law was the one who stipulated the terms of agency contact. That was sent to everyone. It was not by my request. And I had to chase them habitually like a hound dog to get responses from them. Yes, Angel, this 7:30.
It's only at 7:30 because you all were talking. So I will be brief, but I think that I should say something. You guys' conversation should be honest. These members didn't understand the process. These members need more training. Who appointed these people to that committee, and what were the instructions to that committee? What are you supposed to be, what are the guides for that committee that already existed? Was that shared with them and then they were told this is what you're supposed to be doing? We have procedures for multiple committees that members that have been on this board for years don't read. They show up to their meeting. How many letters of support are we supposed to have? How many signatures on a petition? So let's be honest. Okay? You could start the election today for 2 years from now. And with this current crop or this current conversation, you'll hear the same thing. I had an election in the 4th grade, probably you all did too. It's not that hard. 2 candidates, pick one. That's it. But it became a whole big thing. And then when people did say a complaint, then they felt that it wasn't managed in a way that was respectful. Multiple people said it. Multiple people said, this is my complaint, and then I have a complaint about the way my complaint was handled. Multiple people said that. That's not an issue with the process. That's an issue with how this election was managed. You could create we have bylaws that people don't read. We have procedures that people don't read, that we're still talking about shall all these months later. I think is in bad faith. Everybody understood what it is. We're playing Monopoly, these are the rules at Xavier's house. Then we played Monopoly at Xavier's house, the rules are slightly different, but we agreed at the beginning. Everybody's done this. Everybody's done it. Well, sometimes we collect 200 on the first turn, sometimes we collect 200 after, immediately, right? Oh, we're agreed, and then you start. So we have those policies in place. So read the thing. Don't say later, oh, the bylaws are unclear. They're clear. You voted on it. You voted on it this year, Coñazo. After just a couple of months ago, you voted on it. You voted on it. Twice. Oh, it's unclear. So when did it become unclear? After the second vote, it became unclear? Everyone? After the second one? Right, no, I'm saying, I'm looking at everyone so that I'm being fair. I'm trying to be diplomatic with my stare. Right? I'm looking at everyone, right? Like, come on. Like, be honest. Like, there's a lot of time spent on this election thing. Like, you're not here to be managing elections. You're here to serve the needs of the community.
Thank you for that.
Oh, we're gonna spend more time on more procedure. Oh, the shall, the must, the will, the with, and wath, and with. Man, get the heck out of here.
Don't even know they're in the
Focus.
community board meeting.
Focus. I'm saying, I'm serious. You can laugh all you want, but here you are, like how many months having this conversation about this stuff.
What?
All right, I just wanna
About this
say,
whole thing.
I yielded my time to several people, and you know that I had my hand up and told everybody else that I'm glad to hear from everyone. But Derek, I just wanted to clarify that any changes to the bylaws are ratified by the full board. We cannot do any changes, because that's what you gave the impression. So the full board is aware of the changes that were suggested. We have had November elections forever, and this only became an issue for this transition year. And it became an issue when it was talked about 3 years to 3 terms to 2 terms and all that, right? That's what it was. We don't need to change, as God is my witness, who's done these elections, we no longer have to change the month of the election, because you've made a change in the bylaws that people who are currently on the board and can be reappointed can do the 2-year terms. So that is already out. The shall, please, let's put that to bed. Let's put to bed the fact of the standing committee for the board oversight. If office oversight is becoming board oversight, you have that committee. Whether it's a standing committee or it's not a standing committee, it's going to exist, because the chair would be a foolish person to get rid of that committee when it seems like everything is now being put under the purview of board oversight. And with that, I'm not saying anymore because you keep saying it's an hour and roll call and I'm not.
We went
saying
5 minutes over.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
No, but I'm just.
I love
this
what
is
they're-
very frustrating.
Oh,
I wish we
no,
could passionate about something else.
I agree. But
All
at least I
right,
know
everyone,
energy
so
exists.
Dan,
We got a channel.
so want to say, look forward to working with you. and-
Oh, I do. I'll just say very quickly, I want everybody to be, I don't want people to be sitting at a table, feeling disgruntled about anything that we're doing. I will take everyone, look, don't blow my phone, I have things to do, but you can all reach out to me. Look, we're not gonna always make everyone happy, but we're gonna make as many people happy as possible. And if you are not happy, you will at least be well-informed and explain things. But I will say this. There are a handful of meetings recently that if I lived in this neighborhood and I popped in for my first time at a community board meeting, I might have thought I went to the wrong place. Because I'd be like, I don't hear anything about the community being talked about. It's all internal. It's like we're in a relationship with ourselves and that's all we can talk about. And the truth is I don't think any of us want to be doing that. I think a lot of us are capable, all of us are. And so we need to put that energy to the right place, and that's what I intend on doing for each and every member here and the board. All right, so with that,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. I'm gonna include, look, we don't, I'm thinking. It's not easy, but I agree with you. We should be dealing a lot more with the community, like just being out there, finding out that elevators are down, that boilers go down. That's what we should be dealing with. The walkthrough, I wanna leave us on a happy note. The walkthrough, Sage joined me. Okay, Rosa was there. I attended, we had a good representation of people and we get to see work. And I want to leave us on a positive note that the advocacy that we've been doing here, just like from everything as small as a speed hump and the traffic signal that can save lives. When I first got on the board, they fought 10 years to get a stop sign when you get off the bridge on, I think it's like 135th. But with the Second Avenue subway, something when my grandmother was 100, remembers the last sections, the second and third L coming down. Hopefully she'll stick around another 7 years when they cut that ribbon, when we get our stations. So let's keep with that energy and focus in mind, everyone. So with that, please call the roll.
Jose Altamirano, Adem Brija,
Present.
Rosa Diaz,
Present.
Jessica Elliott,
Present without disability.
Paige Mason,
Present.
Jessica Morris,
Yes.
Nelson Orama,
Present.
Asher Rodriguez,
Present.
David Santiago,
Present.
Isaac Scott, Derek Stampone,
Present.
Anne Marie Vasquez,
Present.
Jason Villanueva,
Present.
Michelle Wiltshire Clement.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Happy holidays, everyone.
Merry Christmas.